President Matthew Kane walked slowly to the podium. The lights in the United Earth Assembly Hall were bright and warm. Behind him sat 300 representatives from every nation on Earth. In front of him, a massive screen showed the faces of alien delegates from across the galaxy. This was the most important speech in human history. Kane looked at his notes one last time. 3 years ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Council. It was supposed to be the beginning of a new age. Humans would learn from older, wiser species. They would trade knowledge and resources. They would explore the stars together in peace. The president began to speak. His voice was calm and steady. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," he said, "today marks 3 years since Earth joined your community. We have learned much from your wisdom and experience." On the screen, Kane could see the alien delegates. The Zephyrian ambassador looked bored. His blue skin seemed to shimmer as he whispered something to his aide. Kane knew the Zephyrians thought humans were primitive. They had said so many times in private meetings. The crystalline Nexari representative sat like a living statue made of light. When these beings were amused, their glow would dim. Kane watched as the Nexari's light grew darker. They were laughing at him, in their own way. "We come before you today not as students, but as partners," Kane continued. "Humanity has much to offer the galaxy. Our scientists have made great progress in understanding your technologies. Our engineers have found new ways to improve the systems you have shared with us." Admiral Lisa Carter watched the speech from the bridge of the UES Defiance. The ship floated at the edge of Earth's solar system. It was humanity's flagship, though the aliens thought it was just an exploration vessel. Carter knew better. She had helped design the hidden weapon systems that lined the ship's hull. Carter's eyes moved across her control screens. Everything looked normal. The quantum transmission was working perfectly. Kane's speech was being broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Then she saw something that made her blood freeze. "Admiral," said her communications officer, Lieutenant Ben Phillips, "I'm picking up strange energy readings." Carter leaned forward. "Where?" "Sector 7. It looks like a cloaked ship, but the signature is wrong. It's not one of ours." Carter's hands moved quickly over her controls. She had trained for this moment, though she had hoped it would never come. The energy signature belonged to a Vorthak stealth ship. The Vorthaks were assassins for hire. They worked for whoever paid them enough. Back in the assembly hall, Kane was reaching the most important part of his speech. "We believe that all species can work together," he said. "We believe in peace through cooperation, not fear through force." Dr. Helen Ross sat in the front row, watching her old friend deliver his words. She had known Kane since college. She had been with him when humanity first made contact with alien life. She had watched him grow from a young scientist into Earth's leader. Ross noticed something was wrong. Kane had paused mid-sentence. His face had gone pale. He was looking at something behind the cameras, something the aliens couldn't see. On the UES Defiance, Carter was shouting orders. "Battle stations, all hands to battle stations. Ben, try to jam their targeting systems." "I can't, Admiral," Phillips replied. "They're already locked on." Kane tried to continue his speech, but he could see the warning lights flashing on the walls. Security Chief Dan Foster was moving toward the stage, but he was too far away. Kane knew what was about to happen. He had always known this day might come. The assassination beam came through space faster than light. It was invisible, silent, and deadly. The Vorthaks were very good at their job. The beam passed through the walls of the assembly hall like they weren't there. It was designed to kill one specific target. Kane felt the energy hit his chest. There was no pain, just a strange cold feeling. He looked down and saw his shirt starting to smoke. The beam was eating him from the inside out. Dr. Ross jumped from her seat and ran toward the stage. Foster was there too, along with a dozen other security officers. But it was too late. Kane fell to his knees, then forward onto the podium. Ross caught him as he fell. His eyes were still open, but she could see the life leaving them. The alien delegates on the screen were talking excitedly in their own languages. Some seemed shocked. Others seemed pleased. Kane's lips moved. Ross leaned close to hear his final words. What he said would stay with her for the rest of her life. They have no idea what they've awakened, Kane whispered. Then he was gone. The assembly hall erupted in chaos. Security officers surrounded the stage. Government officials were shouting orders. The quantum transmission cut out, leaving the alien delegates staring at blank screens. Admiral Carter felt the Vorthak ship disappear from her sensors. It had done its job and fled. But she had recorded everything. She had proof of what had happened. Vice President Marcus Webb arrived at the assembly hall within minutes. He had been in his office when the assassination happened. Now he stood over Kane's body, his face hard as stone. Webb had been a general before he became a politician. He understood war in ways that Kane never had. He looked at the blood on the stage and made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Doctor, Ross stood up slowly. Her hands were covered in Kane's blood. She looked at Webb and saw something in his eyes that frightened her. It was not grief or shock. It was something much colder. Sir, said Foster, we need to get you to a secure location. Webb nodded, but he didn't move. He was looking at the alien delegates on the screens around the hall. Many of them had reconnected to see what was happening. He could see the calculation in their eyes. They were wondering if humanity would fall apart now that their leader was dead. Get me a full security briefing in 1 hour, Webb told Foster. I want to know everything about who did this and why. Yes, sir, Foster replied. Webb looked at Ross. Helen, I'm going to need your help. You knew Kane better than anyone. You know what he would have wanted. Ross wiped the blood from her hands. What he wanted was peace. Peace is off the table now, Webb said quietly. They just made sure of that. As Webb walked out of the assembly hall, he was already thinking about the secret files Kane had shared with him. Files about Project Prometheus. Files about humanity's real military capabilities. Files that would soon turn the galaxy upside down. Vice President Marcus Webb sat in the secure underground bunker beneath the White House. The room was filled with Earth's top military commanders and scientists. On the table in front of him lay files that would have terrified the alien delegates, who thought they knew humanity. Webb had been president for exactly 6 hours. In that time, the galaxy had sent their condolences and their warnings. The Zephyrian ambassador had called to express deep regret for the tragic accident. Other species had suggested that Earth might want to reconsider its membership in the Galactic Council. They thought Kane's death would make humanity weak and afraid. They were wrong. General Kevin Price stood at the front of the room. He was a big man with gray hair and scars from the border wars. He had never trusted the aliens, and now his suspicions were proven right. Mr. President, Price began, we have confirmed that the Zephyrian hegemony ordered the assassination. They used Vorthak mercenaries to do the actual killing. They wanted it to look like an accident, but Admiral Carter's ships recorded everything. Webb nodded. He had expected this. The Zephyrians had been pushing for Earth's mining rights in the Outer Rim. Kane had refused to sign their treaties. Now they thought they could force humanity's hand with a new, more cooperative leader. What they don't know, Price continued, is that we've been preparing for this day since we first made contact. Dr. Carl Mitchell stepped forward. He was a thin man with thick glasses and nervous hands. He had been working on secret projects for 3 years. Projects that the aliens knew nothing about. The other species think we're primitive, Mitchell said. They think our technology is crude and inefficient. We've been very careful to let them keep thinking that. Webb had seen some of the reports, but he wanted to hear everything. Show me what we really have. Mitchell activated a holographic display. The image showed a sleek warship unlike anything Earth had ever built publicly. It was dark and angular, covered in weapons that seemed to bend space around them. This is the UES Retribution, Mitchell explained. We finished building her last month. She's the first of 12 ships in the Prometheus class. The aliens have never seen anything like her. Commander Amy Rodriguez stood up from her chair. She was young for her rank, but she had proven herself in the secret war games that Earth had been conducting. War games that prepared for exactly this situation. The aliens fight with energy weapons and plasma shields, Rodriguez said. Their battles are like chess games, slow, careful, predictable. They've been using the same tactics for thousands of years. She touched the hologram, and the ship began to move. It twisted and spun in ways that defied physics. Weapons emerged from hidden panels and fired in all directions at once. We built our ships to fight dirty, Rodriguez continued. Fast attacks, surprise weapons, tactics they've never seen before. While they're trying to figure out what we're doing, we'll already be gone. Webb watched the display with growing satisfaction. This was what Kane had been hiding. This was why he had been so confident during the peace negotiations. He knew that if diplomacy failed, humanity had other options. Captain Tony Brooks was the youngest person in the room. He had been chosen to command the Retribution because of his unconventional thinking. The old ways of space combat meant nothing to him. "Sir," Brooks said, "we've also been working on something else. The aliens think they understand human psychology. They think we're emotional and unpredictable. They're right, but not in the way they expect." Brooks activated another display. This one showed star charts with red lines connecting dozens of systems. Every alien species has something they value more than life itself, Brooks explained. The Zephyrians care about their ancient temples. The Nexari worship their crystal matrices. The Vorthax have their honor codes. Webb began to understand. You've been mapping their weaknesses. Not just mapping them, said Dr. Helen Ross, who had been quiet until now. We've been learning how to destroy them. The aliens shared their cultures with us because they thought we were harmless. They told us everything we needed to know to hurt them where it counts. Ross activated her own files. Images of alien cities, religious sites, and historical monuments filled the room. They think humans are cruel because we wage war, Ross said. They don't understand that we're cruel because we know exactly how to make war hurt. General Price took control of the presentation. Mr. President, we have been building a military force in secret for 3 years. Our ships are faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything in the galaxy. Our weapons use combinations of alien technology that no other species thought to try. The next image showed weapon tests. Human ships firing beams that tore through alien armor like paper. Missiles that could track targets across multiple star systems. Bombs that could make entire planets uninhabitable. The most important thing, Price continued, is that we've been studying their military capabilities. We know where their fleets are stationed. We know how their defenses work. We know their communication codes and their command structures. Webb stood up and walked around the table. He was thinking like a general now, not a politician. Kane had been a dreamer who believed in peace. Webb was a realist who prepared for war. How long would it take to mobilize our forces? Webb asked. 6 hours for the first wave, Price replied. 24 hours for full deployment. We have ships and weapons hidden in asteroid fields throughout human space. The aliens think they're mining operations. Commander Rodriguez smiled grimly. We also have sleeper agents on every major alien world. Scientists, diplomats, and traders who have been mapping targets and gathering intelligence. Major Beth Young had been listening quietly. She was in charge of Earth's Special Operations Forces, men and women who could pass for diplomats but were actually soldiers. Sir, Young said, we've been preparing for more than just military action. We know how to hit them economically, politically, and psychologically. When we strike, it won't just be their fleets that suffer. Webb looked around the room at these people who had been planning humanity's revenge while Kane gave speeches about peace. He felt a moment of sadness for his dead friend, then pushed it away. Kane's way had failed. Now it was time for Webb's way. What about casualties? Webb asked. How many humans will die in this war? The room went quiet. Finally, Dr. Mitchell spoke up. Mr. President, he said carefully, we don't plan to fight a fair war. We plan to fight a short war, hit them so hard and so fast that they surrender before they know what happened. And if they don't surrender? Price's voice was like ice. Then we keep hitting them until they do. Webb walked back to his chair and sat down. He thought about Kane's final words. They have no idea what they've awakened. His friend had been right. The aliens had killed a man of peace and created something much more dangerous. "Gentlemen, ladies," Webb said quietly, "begin preparations for Operation Retribution. Send a message to every human ship, base and outpost. Tell them that President Kane's death will not go unanswered." He looked at each person in the room. The aliens wanted to see what humans do when we're backed into a corner. Let's show them. President Webb stood before the cameras in the Oval Office. Behind him, the flag of United Earth hung next to the old American flag. In 12 hours, his message would reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. The aliens thought they controlled galactic communications. They were about to learn otherwise. Dr. Carl Mitchell worked frantically in the basement of the Pentagon. His team had spent 2 years building the quantum transmission system that would make Webb's broadcast possible. The aliens had shared their communication technology freely, never thinking that humans would improve it. "Are we ready?" Webb asked through his earpiece. "Yes, sir," Mitchell replied. "We're going to override every communication channel in the galaxy simultaneously. They won't be able to stop the signal or trace its source." Webb nodded. This was the moment everything changed. For 3 years, humanity had played the role of grateful students learning from their alien teachers. Today, the mask came off. Admiral Lisa Carter waited on the bridge of the UES Retribution. The ship hung in space near the Kepler 442 system, invisible to alien sensors. In the distance, she could see the massive Zephyrian military outpost that protected their mining operations. The base was huge, built into an asteroid the size of a small moon. It housed 10,000 Zephyrian soldiers and their families. It was defended by energy shields that could stop any known weapon. The Zephyrians thought it was untouchable. Carter checked her chronometer. In exactly 30 seconds, President Webb would begin his speech. 30 seconds after that, she would show the galaxy what human weapons could really do. "All stations report ready," said her weapons officer, Lieutenant Jake Davis. "Very good," Carter replied. "Remember, we only get one chance to make a first impression." On Earth, Webb's broadcast began. His image appeared on screens across the galaxy, interrupting regular programming and emergency channels alike. Alien leaders scrambled to understand how humans had taken control of their communication networks. "Citizens of the galaxy," Webb said, his voice calm and clear. "3 days ago you murdered our leader. You killed President Matthew Kane because you thought it would make us weak and afraid." On the Zephyrian homeworld, Ambassador Thek watched the human president with growing alarm. The assassination was supposed to be secret. How did the humans know who was responsible? "You were wrong," Webb continued. "President Kane died believing in peace and cooperation. I do not share his beliefs. You have awakened something in humanity that you are not prepared to face." Webb paused and looked directly into the camera. His eyes were cold and hard. "This is not a declaration of war," he said. "This is a promise of consequences." At that moment, Admiral Carter gave the order to fire. The UES Retribution's main weapon charged with energy that bent space around the ship. The weapon was based on alien plasma technology, but humans had modified it in ways no other species had thought possible. The beam that erupted from the Retribution was not the elegant energy lance that aliens expected. It was a writhing torrent of destructive force that tore through space-time itself. The Zephyrian shields designed to deflect conventional weapons simply vanished when the beam touched them. The asteroid base began to break apart immediately. 10,000 years of Zephyrian engineering collapsed in 30 seconds. The defenders had no time to send a distress signal, no time to evacuate, no time to understand what was happening to them. Commander Amy Rodriguez watched from her ship as the base disappeared in a flash of light. She had helped design the weapons that made this possible. Seeing them in action still amazed her. "Target destroyed," she reported to Carter. "No survivors detected." "Understood," Carter replied. "Begin Phase 2. Major Beth Young materialized in the Zephyrian capital city as the base was being destroyed. She was not alone. Across the galaxy, human diplomats appeared in government buildings, military headquarters, and alien homes. They wore the same peaceful uniforms they had worn for 3 years. They carried the same diplomatic credentials, but now they delivered a very different message. Young walked into the Zephyrian Council chamber where the Empire's leaders were meeting in emergency session. The guards tried to stop her, but their weapons simply refused to work. Human technology had been quietly disabling alien systems for months. "Honored counselors," Young said politely, "I bring greetings from President Webb and the people of Earth." Council Leader Vash stood up, his blue skin flushed with anger. "Human, you will explain this attack immediately. This is an act of war." Young smiled. "No, Counselor. This is an act of justice. You ordered the assassination of our leader. We are simply responding in kind." She activated a holographic projector that showed the destruction of the Kepler 442 base. The Zephyrian counselors watched in horror as their supposedly invincible fortress was reduced to cosmic dust. "How is this possible?" whispered Counselor Mech. "Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields." "Our old weapons couldn't," Young agreed. "But we haven't been using our old weapons for quite some time." On Earth, Webb's broadcast continued. "For 3 years you have taught us about galactic civilization. You have shared your technology, your culture, and your weaknesses. We have been very attentive students." The image behind Webb changed to show the destroyed Zephyrian base. Across the galaxy, alien leaders watched in shock as their military superiority evaporated before their eyes. "You thought our technology was primitive," Webb said. "You thought our ships were slow and our weapons were weak. You thought wrong." Colonel Jake Davis led a squadron of human ships against a Zephyrian patrol fleet near the Outer Rim. The aliens tried to use their traditional battle formations, but the humans ignored every rule of space combat. Human ships moved in impossible patterns, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons fired from angles that should have been impossible. When the Zephyrians tried to retreat, they found their escape routes blocked by ships that seemed to materialize from nowhere. "This is Admiral Keth of the Zephyrian Third Fleet," came a desperate transmission. "We surrender. Please, we surrender." Davis didn't respond immediately. He was following orders to let the aliens feel helpless for a few moments. Fear was as important as firepower in this war. "Surrender accepted," Davis finally replied. "Prepare to be boarded." Captain Tony Brooks commanded the human boarding parties that took control of the Zephyrian ships. The aliens were shocked to discover that the humans already knew everything about their technology, their crew rotations, and their security codes. "How long have you been planning this?" asked Admiral Keith as he was taken into custody. Brooks smiled. "Since the day we met you." Back on Earth, Webb reached the climax of his speech. "You killed one human and thought we would submit. Instead, you have taught us that strength is the only currency that matters in your galactic community." Webb's image was replaced by tactical displays showing human forces across the galaxy, ships that the aliens had never seen before, weapons that violated every law of physics they understood, soldiers who moved like ghosts through their most secure facilities. "We did not want this war," Webb said, his voice echoing across 1,000 worlds. "But since you have insisted on teaching us about the galaxy's true nature, we have decided to become very good students." Dr. Helen Ross watched the broadcast from her laboratory. She thought about Kane and his dreams of peaceful cooperation. Those dreams were dead now, killed by the same beam that had killed her friend. "President Kane believed in your better nature," Webb concluded. "I believe in consequences. You wanted to see what happens when humans are pushed too far. Now you know." The broadcast ended, but its effects were just beginning. Across the galaxy, alien governments scrambled to understand how their primitive neighbors had become so powerful so quickly. Admiral Carter received new orders from Earth. The EAT demonstration was over. Now came the real war. "All ships," she transmitted to the growing human fleet, "commence Operation Retribution. Show them what we learned from their lessons." The stars themselves seemed to grow dimmer as humanity's hidden war machine emerged. From the shadows, the galaxy had assassinated Earth's leader. Now they would learn why that had been the worst mistake in their long history. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as her fleet moved through hyperspace toward the Zephyrian home system. Behind her followed 200 human warships that officially did not exist. For 3 years, Earth had been building a secret navy. Now it was time to use it. The Zephyrian hegemony controlled 47 star systems and had ruled the galaxy's eastern spiral arm for over 2,000 years. Their military was considered one of the most powerful in known space. They had never lost a major war. That was about to change. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell from his sensor station, "we're detecting the Zephyrian home fleet. 300 ships in defensive formation around their capital world." Carter nodded. The Zephyrians were doing exactly what their military doctrine required: form a strong defensive line and force the enemy to attack prepared positions. It was a strategy that had worked for them for centuries. "They're trying to fight us like they fought everyone else," Carter said to her command staff. "They still don't understand what we are." Commander Amy Rodriguez studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Each vessel knew its exact position and role. Their formation was beautiful, elegant, and completely predictable. "It's like they're showing us exactly where to shoot," Rodriguez observed. Carter smiled grimly. "That's because they are. Begin stealth approach. I want us close enough to touch them before they know we're there." The human fleet vanished from sensors as their cloaking systems activated. Unlike alien stealth technology, which simply bent light around ships, human cloaking actually shifted vessels slightly out of normal spacetime. The effect made them effectively invisible to any known detection method. Lieutenant Bell had pioneered the ghost ship tactics that were about to be used. His ships could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and disappear before the enemy could respond. To their targets, it would seem like the universe itself was attacking them. On the Zephyrian flagship Eternal Glory, Admiral Vorth studied his long-range sensors with growing confusion. The human fleet had simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. "Status report," Vorth demanded. "No contact, sir," replied his sensor officer. "The humans appear to have retreated." Vorth was not convinced. He had been fighting wars for 300 years. Enemies did not simply vanish unless they were planning something terrible. "Maintain full alert," he ordered. "Increase sensor sweeps to maximum range." It was too late. The human fleet was already inside the Zephyrian defensive perimeter, moving like ghosts between the alien ships. Carter had positioned her vessels to attack from within the enemy formation itself. "All ships," Carter transmitted on a frequency the Zephyrians could not detect, "commence synchronized strike. Target their command vessels first." The attack began. With no warning, human ships materialized inside the Zephyrian formation and opened fire at point-blank range. The aliens' energy shields designed to stop attacks from outside were useless against weapons fired from within their own defensive line. The Eternal Glory shuddered as invisible weapons tore through its hull. Admiral Vorth watched in horror as his ship's systems began failing one by one. His crew was screaming reports of damage from sections that showed no sign of attack. "How are they doing this?" Vorth shouted. His tactical officer's voice was full of panic. "Sir, they're firing while cloaked. We can't see them to shoot back." Chief Engineer Steve Moore had designed the weapon systems that made this possible. Human ships could fire their main guns while remaining completely invisible. The energy required was enormous, but human power systems had been built to handle it. More Zephyrian ships began to explode as the ghostly human fleet moved through their formation like death itself. The aliens tried to retreat, but they found their escape, routes blocked by ships they could not see. "This is Admiral Vorth to all ships," came the desperate transmission. "Break formation and scatter, every ship for itself." Carter watched as the elegant Zephyrian battle line collapsed into chaos. 2,000 years of military tradition crumbled in less than 10 minutes. "Phase 2, Carter ordered. Now the real demonstration began. The human ships stopped hiding and revealed themselves in all their terrible glory. The Zephyrians finally got a good look at what Earth had been building in secret. The human warships looked nothing like the peaceful exploration vessels the aliens were familiar with. These were predator ships, built for killing. Their hulls were black as space and covered in weapons that seemed to bend reality around them. Captain Tony Brooks commanded one of the new destroyers. His ship was small compared to the massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts, but it moved like a living thing. Where alien ships flew in straight lines, human ships twisted and spun in 3 dimensions. "Target their engines," Brooks ordered. "Let's see how well they fight when they can't run away." The human weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the clean energy beams favored by other species, human guns fired concentrated destruction that seemed to eat through matter itself. Colonel Jake Davis led the fighter squadrons that swarmed over the crippled Zephyrian fleet. His pilots had trained for years in tactics that no alien military academy taught. They fought dirty, striking weak points and retreating before the enemy could respond. "Remember," Davis transmitted to his pilots, "we're not here to be fair. We're here to win." The Zephyrian fighters tried to engage the humans in traditional dogfights, but the human craft simply refused to follow the rules. They attacked from impossible angles, disappeared when fired upon, and seemed to know exactly where their enemies would be before they got there. On the surface of the Zephyrian homeworld, billions watched the battle through their news networks. They saw their invincible fleet being torn apart by ships that moved like demons and fought like nightmares. Dr. Susan Clark's Psychological Warfare Division had prepared for this moment. As the Zephyrian ships burned in space, human transmissions flooded their communication networks with a simple message: "This is what happens when you murder our leaders." The crystalline Nexari Empire decided to aid their Zephyrian allies. A fleet of living crystal ships arrived to reinforce the battle. The Nexari were energy beings who inhabited crystal matrices. They were immune to most physical weapons. They were not immune to what humans had prepared for them. Dr. Carl Mitchell had spent months studying Nexari physiology. He discovered that their energy forms could be disrupted by specific quantum frequencies. The humans had built weapons specifically designed to scatter Nexari consciousness across light years of space. The crystal ships entered the battle with confidence. Their energy shields and living hulls had protected them for millennia. They died screaming as human disruption fields tore their souls apart. Major Beth Young coordinated ground operations on 12 different worlds. Human Special Forces teams struck at alien infrastructure with surgical precision. They destroyed communication centers, power plants, and military bases with weapons that left no traces. "The beauty of it," Young explained to her commanders, "is that they still don't understand how we're doing any of this. They think we're using alien technology against them, but we're actually using their technology in ways they never imagined." General Kevin Price watched the reports flowing in from across the galaxy. Human forces were winning every engagement. Alien fleets that had ruled space for centuries were being destroyed by ships they had never seen before. "How are our casualties?" Price asked his aide. "Minimal, sir. The aliens can't hit what they can't see, and they can't fight what they don't understand." Back in the Zephyrian home system, Admiral Vorth's fleet was dying. Of his 300 ships, less than 50 remained functional. The humans had not lost a single vessel. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." Admiral Carter's face appeared on Vorth's screen. She looked calm and professional, as if she were discussing trade agreements instead of conducting a massacre. "Admiral Vorth," Carter said politely, "you have fought bravely, but this battle is over. Surrender now and you're remaining. Crews will be treated according to galactic law." Vorth stared at the human admiral. 300 years of military service had not prepared him for this moment. "What do you want?" he asked. "Justice," Carter replied. "You killed our president. We kill your fleet. The account is almost balanced." Vorth looked around his burning bridge. His tactical displays showed the ghostly human ships moving through the wreckage like sharks through blood. "I surrender," he said quietly. The Battle of Zephyr Prime was over. In 6 hours, humanity had destroyed the most powerful fleet in the galaxy without losing a single ship. The message was clear. Earth's military capabilities had been vastly underestimated. More importantly, the humans had demonstrated that they could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and vanish before retaliation was possible. Every alien world was now vulnerable. Admiral Carter sent her report back to Earth. The hunt had begun and humanity was very good at hunting. President Marcus Webb walked into the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers 6 months after the war began. The hall looked exactly the same as before, but everything had changed. The alien delegates who once looked at humans with contempt now watched Webb with the careful attention reserved for apex predators. The war was over, though it had never officially been declared one. Humanity had made their point in a series of surgical strikes that crippled alien military forces across the galaxy. The Zephyrian hegemony no longer existed as an independent power. The Nexari Empire had been reduced to 3 systems. The Vorthak, assassin clans, had been hunted to extinction. Webb took his place at the podium where President Kane had died. Behind him sat the new reality of galactic politics. Admiral Lisa Carter represented Earth's military interests. Dr. Helen Ross spoke. For the scientific community, General Kevin Price oversaw security for all human operations. But the most telling change was the presence of Captain Tony Brooks and his honor guard. They wore the black uniforms of the Terran Defense Corps and carried weapons that made the alien delegates nervous. No one in the galaxy felt safe around humans anymore. Fellow beings, Webb began, using the same words Kane had spoken 6 months ago. We gather today to discuss the new order that has emerged from recent events. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. They remembered Webb's last broadcast, when he had promised consequences for Kane's assassination. Those consequences had reshaped the galaxy. Ambassador Thek of the surviving Zephyrian territories spoke first. His blue skin had lost its shimmer, and his voice carried the weight of defeat. President Webb, Thek said carefully, the Zephyrian people wish to formally apologize for the actions of our former government. We had no knowledge of the assassination plot. Webb looked at Thek with cold eyes. Your ignorance is noted, Ambassador. It does not absolve you of responsibility. The truth was more complex than Webb let on. Human intelligence had discovered that only a small faction of Zephyrian leaders had ordered Kane's death. But Webb had decided that the entire species needed to learn a lesson about consequences. Admiral Carter stood up from her seat. She activated a holographic display that showed the current position of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked the location of over 500 warships that had emerged from hiding in the past 6 months. As you can see, Carter said, Earth's military presence has been expanded. We now maintain security forces in every major star system. The alien delegates stared at the display in shock. Human ships surrounded their homeworlds, their trade routes, and their military bases. Earth had effectively occupied the galaxy without firing a shot. Commander Amy Rodriguez had been promoted to admiral after her role in the Zephyrian campaign. She now commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Her ships patrolled the space lanes, ensuring that trade flowed smoothly and that no species got any ideas about revenge. The humans call them protection fleets, whispered the Altarian delegate to his aide. But we all know what they really are. Dr. Carl Mitchell had been busy in the months since the war ended. His teams had established research stations throughout the galaxy, officially to study alien technology for peaceful purposes. In reality, they were monitoring every species for signs of military buildup or anti-human sentiment. We have learned much from our new partnerships, Mitchell reported to the Council. Human-alien cooperation has reached unprecedented levels. It was true, though not in the way it sounded. Alien species were cooperating because they had no choice. Human technology now controlled most galactic communication networks, power grids, and transportation systems. Earth had become indispensable to the daily operation of civilization. Colonel Jake Davis, now a general, oversaw the human military academy that had been established on 23 different worlds. Officially, it was a cultural exchange program where alien students could learn about human military history and tactics. In practice, it was a way to ensure that every alien military officer in the galaxy understood exactly how outclassed they were. Our students are very eager to learn, Davis reported. They show particular interest in our lessons about the importance of keeping promises and honoring agreements. The Nexari representative, a dim crystal being named Flux, spoke up hesitantly. General Davis, my people are concerned about the intensity of your training programs. Davis smiled. Education should be memorable, Flux. We want to make sure your officers never forget what they've learned. Major Beth Young, now Colonel Young, had been busy establishing human cultural centers on every major world. These centers served as embassies, intelligence gathering posts, and reminder monuments all at once. Each center displayed a holographic memorial to President Kane. The memorial showed his assassination in graphic detail, followed by footage of the Zephyrian fleet being destroyed. The message was clear. This is what happens when you harm humans. Our cultural exchange programs have been very successful, Young reported. Alien citizens are developing a deep appreciation for human values and customs. What she didn't mention was that those same citizens were also developing a healthy fear of human retaliation. Children on dozens of worlds now grew up learning about the species that could appear anywhere and destroy anything. Captain Ryan Bell had been promoted to admiral and given command of the new diplomatic fleet. These ships served as mobile embassies, traveling from system to maintain friendly relations with alien governments. The ships also served as a constant reminder that humanity could project power anywhere in the galaxy at any time. Each diplomatic vessel carried enough firepower to level a planet. Webb looked around the council chamber at the faces of beings who had once considered themselves humanity's superiors. Now they hung on his every word, desperate to avoid giving offense. The assassination of President Kane taught us valuable lessons about galactic politics, Webb said. We learned that strength is indeed the only currency that matters in this community. The alien delegates nodded agreement, though many of them remembered when they had taught humans that very lesson. We also learned that humanity has a unique talent for applying lessons we've been taught, Webb continued. You taught us about power and we became powerful. You taught us about consequences and we became very good at providing them. Dr. Helen Ross watched the proceedings with mixed feelings. Kane's dream of peaceful cooperation was dead, but perhaps something better had taken its place. The galaxy was more stable now than it had been in centuries. Wars between alien species had virtually stopped, largely because everyone was too worried about humanity's reaction to start new conflicts. The new galactic order requires certain adjustments, Webb announced. All military buildups must be reported to Earth for security analysis. All new weapon systems must be registered with human authorities. All interstellar disputes will be mediated by human arbitrators. It was conquest without occupation, control without obvious oppression. Humanity had become the galaxy's police force by demonstrating that they were too dangerous to oppose. The Vorthak delegate started to object, then remembered that most of his species was dead. The few surviving Vorthak clans existed only because humanity had decided to spare them as an example of their mercy. What about our sovereignty? Asked the Altarian ambassador. Webb's expression never changed. Your sovereignty exists at our discretion, just as ours once existed at yours. The difference is that we are much better at this game than you ever were. The session ended with the signing of the Galactic Cooperation Accords. Every species pledged to respect human interests and avoid any actions that might threaten Earth's security. In return, humanity promised to protect the galaxy from external threats and maintain interstellar peace. As the alien delegates filed out of the chamber, they carried with them the knowledge that their civilizations existed only because humanity allowed it. The species that had once seemed primitive and weak had become the ultimate power in the galaxy. Webb remained behind as the chamber emptied. He walked to the spot where Kane had fallen and stood there for a long moment. You would have hated this, he said quietly to his dead friend. But you would have understood why it was necessary. Admiral Carter joined him at the podium. Any regrets, Mr. President? Webb looked at the empty seats where the alien delegates had sat. Just one. We tried to do this peacefully first. They chose otherwise. He turned to Carter with the cold smile. That had become his trademark. But their choice taught us something important about ourselves. We're very good at being the monsters they thought we were. Outside the council chambers, human ships patrolled the stars like silent guardians. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the price of underestimating humanity. The stars themselves seemed dimmer now, And across 1,000 worlds, alien, children went to sleep with new nightmares about the species that could strike from the shadows and reshape the universe to their will. The assassination of Earth's leader had indeed shaken the stars, but the tremors that followed had rearranged the entire galaxy, with humanity standing at the center of a new order built on the rubble of their enemies' mistakes.